I'm joined now by my friend, Canadian journalist and host of Krayden's Right, David Krayden. Good to see you, David.
It's so nice to be back, Neil.
David, I feel sometime in the not too distant future, you in Canada and me in Britain, we'll soon only be able to communicate with one another by banging out Morse code on the pipes of our prison cells with our tin cups. What say you?
I've never seen freedom die so quickly as it has in the UK in the last month of this horrid administration. But Canada, of course, is going in the same way. We have the Online News Act coming to us again in the fall for a second reading. But believe it or not, Neil, the RCMP in this country, yes, the blessed Royal Canadian Mounted Police, are doing it already. They're not waiting for this law to be passed to go around arresting people for supposedly putting horrible things on the internet, on social media. There was a woman in Chilliwack recently arrested for supposedly putting out racially offensive material on social internet. And where have we seen this? This is exactly what happened in Britain, where that visual, that scene of the two cops, one of them talking like Eliza Doolittle, coming in there and telling that old man that he's guilty of a Facebook crime. And in fact, he says, "Oh, let me guess, it's a Facebook crime, isn't it?" And she says, "That's right. Get your meds. We're going to jail." And that's exactly what's transpiring here in Canada. Now we had a woman in Wasaga Beach, which is in southern Ontario, and just north of Toronto. The cops came to her living room and warned her about things she was putting on social media. So they're not even waiting for the Online Harms Act to pass, which, as you know, and I think your listeners will know, this is Justin Trudeau's third piece of internet legislation, internet censorship, which is going to make it illegal to have a thought crime. There's actually a thought crimes component in this bill, and it's going to make it extremely difficult for anybody out there as an independent journalist, as new media, and even for old media, to say anything controversial, anything that's going to upset the government. And right now, that's Justin Trudeau, and just about everything upsets Justin Trudeau, unless you're in lockstep with his socialist policies.
I have it on good authority that that Trudeau is contemplating pushing for the ability to jail for life on account of things that people say. That some of it is actually going to carry a life term. Can that be true?
Yes, that's exactly. The Online Harms Bill has a provision for 20 years in prison. That's more than murderers are getting in this country. 20 years, that's life in Canada, yes. And that's part of the Online Harms Bill. And this is a piece of legislation that has been sold to the public as a means of protecting children from child pornography. Children are already protected from child pornography through the criminal code, through legislation. And it's got nothing to do with revenge porn and all these other red herrings that the Trudeau government is putting up there and out there as a means of making people accept this bill. This bill is, strictly speaking, everything George Orwell spoke about in 1984. Yes, Justin Trudeau is using 1984 as a guidebook. Our opposition conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, have made that declaration and that observation about a month or two ago, saying Trudeau doesn't look at 1984 as a warning. He looks upon it as a guidebook, as a means to advancing his censorship agenda, which is amongst the most frightening in the world. At least as frightening as what's happening in your country right now under Starmer, who is bringing Britain down to a totalitarian second world nation. It's shocking to me. I have loved Great Britain my entire life. I have looked to the UK as the fount of free speech, as the country that developed free speech over centuries because of the Magna Carta and forward. This is the country, I asked recently, how do democracies die? Well, they can die pretty quickly. When you have a prime minister who goes on about these so-called keyboard warriors who should be locked up for 3 years for daring to put anything on social media that upsets this pudgy-faced dictator.
David Krayden in Canada, I hear you loud and clear, brother. I'm so glad that you were able to join me, because the emotion with which you speak over and above the words you used to articulate your thoughts, there's the message. David Krayden, you and I will speak together again very soon, but thanks for joining me so far. Jasmine, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That emotion. That's what it. I mean, I was finding it laughable what David was describing, but it's not a happy laughter. It's it's the kind of gallous laughter of the condemned man.
Absolutely, it's so insane. And as he was talking, I was thinking again that Trudeau's Canada, which Canada used to be the place of freedom generally. Certainly in my view, Trudeau's Canada was the one that first closed people's accounts just for the temerity of protesting, and then closed the accounts of people who supported the people who were protesting. This is a truly shocking individual.
And people like myself, people like yourself, were being shouted down as conspiracy theorists. But how long were we pointing out that the same things were being done in lockstep, one after the other, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, here in Britain, and we were called conspiracy theorists for suggesting that all of it had a larger choreography.
Absolutely.
That it was just some kind of organic coincidence that all these places were doing the same thing, using the same words at the same time.
Yeah, same phrases. 2 steps to flatten the curve. One more push.
Build back better. Narrow window of opportunity.
Absolutely.
And yet to suggest that some of it might have actually been coordinated from on high, you got conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.